Okay, so to start wedging your clay, you're going to stand up, and then you're going to just kind of pound your clay onto the middle of the tarp till it starts getting a bit flat, like this, and then you're going to fold it, and you're going to keep pounding the clay. And then you're going to fold it, and you're going to do that for like a good 5 minutes, okay? So if you have clay, you can go ahead and start wedging your clay with me, and then I'll show you what to do next. So right now, all you're doing is wedging your clay, okay? So stand up, and you can start doing that. Don't be afraid. Get your angst out on that clay. Just stand up. Yeah, if you're sitting and doing it, it's just not going to really work right. So clay is really active. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll tell you the next part in just a moment. Okay, so remember, you're slamming to wedge your clay. You're taking your block, you're slamming it down and flipping it. It'll become kind of flat. And after you've done that a bit, then you're going to fold it, and kind of when you fold it, and then you kind of push down like that, push away from yourself. So you have to put your weight into it. That's why you stand up, because if you're sitting, you can't really put your weight into it, and it won't wedge right. So slam it down and then fold it a different way than you did before. Fold and then push away. Alright, I have it like this, where it's thin like that. And then I'm going to fold it and push away. Once you've wedged it for like a good 5 minutes and it feels like you wedged it pretty good, what you're going to do is start forming it into a block again. And you might think, well, it was a block in the first place. If you would have just used that block without wedging it, you'd have chances of air bubbles, and you'd have chances of it being inconsistent and cracking. So what you're going to do next is form it into a block by kind of pounding it at angles to make a block. Who's with me? Give me 5 if you're with me. 3 if you're getting there. 0 if you're lost. What do I do? You don't want a super thin pancake.
How do you know when you wedge it?
If you wedged it consistently for like 5 minutes, you're probably good. If it feels like it's consistent. Okay, so then make it a block like this, and then once we get a block, I'll show you what to do next. Once you have your clay into a block, you wedge it into a block, we're going to start wedging it into a ball, into a sphere. To do that, you're just going to take it and kind of smush down the corners, and this time more gently and more controlled. You're not going to throw it down like you were before. So for anyone that plays like Dungeons and Dragons, it'll end up looking like a 20-sided dice. Any nerds in here? Where are my D&D nerds? You know where? Well, if you've ever seen a 20-sided dice, that's what it's going to look like first. So we're smashing down the corners and rounding it off to form a ball. My pinch pot's going to be kind of big. That's all right. Okay, and once you have it into pretty much a ball shape, you're going to take it into your hands and then smack it around like this till it forms a ball. Don't try and roll it. You kind of just pound down the corners like that. If you try and roll it, it'll kind of crack and crumble. So after you kind of smush down the corners, then place it in your hand. And do this if you've ever worked with like a pastry dough or something like that. It's similar to that. Make a nice clay sphere, make it look pretty even. Kind of smooth out and pound out any cracks in it or any like weird holes. You want to get rid of those. So to start forming your pinch pot, pick it up in your hand, and then you're going to take your thumb and push a little bit right there in the middle, and then you're going to see my hand like this. I make a claw, and then when you're going to push kind of down, and then you're going to turn it, pinch and turn. You don't want to take it and just like dig down deep in there. You're going to crack your clay. You'll notice your thumb is going to go in there a little bit more each time. So like this. That's why it's called a pinch pot, because you pinch it. Don't go up here and just pinch up here, because it's going to get really flimsy. Your goal when you're making your pinch pot is to have it consistent thickness throughout the entire form of the pinch pot. The bottom, the sides, the top, everything is going to be uniform. The reason for that is it'll prevent cracking. If you have a piece that's really inconsistent in thickness, it will lead to cracking of your piece. The reason for that is when clay shrinks as it dries, and if you have a really thin piece and it becomes really thicker, the thin piece is going to dry at a lot faster rate than the thicker piece, which means that it'll crack because they're not drying in the consistent, together. Does that make sense? So I'm putting my thumb in and pinch and turn like that. And I'm not pinching up here at all. I'm not pinching at the top. I'm just pinching the bottom and like down and kind of like that. Pinch and turn. Yes, you can start. Give me 5 if you're with me. You know what you're doing. Yeah. If your hand gets tired, switch to your other one. And then as you get deeper, then you can use your whole hand to, like, I'm kind of pinching with this whole part of my hand and turning, pinch and turn. If you want the rim, this to be wider, you can kind of pull the whole thing out more like that. But don't just pinch the top of it. Otherwise, I can show you what some kindergarten ones look like. They're in the kiln right now. And now you're going to do this until your clay gets about as thick all around as no thicker than your thumb this way. When you're working with clay, no piece of clay should be thicker than your thumb turned this way. The reason for that is if you have really thick pieces of clay, the chances of it exploding in the kiln due to air pockets or trapped moisture is really high. So it's really good to just keep that rule in your mind, is clay should be no thicker than your thumb sideways like that. Anyone else got a hitchhiker's thumb? Who can do that? Damien's got one.
How deep do I have to?
Hmm?
How deep does the hole have to?
Until, well, that's a good question. How deep do you make that hole? Until this part, the bottom, is no thicker than your thumb this way. So if you just made it halfway through and the bottom is this thick, guess what? It's gonna pop, the thing's gonna explode out the bottom. That's a big problem I see with a student's first projects is a piece right here of their pinch pot will blow off the pinch pot and it'll just like explode because it's too thick. They leave it too thick in this area. So it's really important when you're forming your pinch pot that you are feeling and making sure that it's consistent thickness around. So let's say I want to widen this mouth. Then what I'm going to do is once it's wide enough, I can come through. I'm getting some cracks. And really carefully work my way around to form my pinch pot. So pinch and turn. I mean, clay takes a lot of patience and time, you know, to learn and to do. So you can't, if you rush this and you're like, I'm just gonna dig in there and get that whole, you're gonna end up with a piece that falls apart because it's gonna crack. And what you can do if your if this gets too thin, you can gently kind of move some of the clay up to the top. And notice we're not using any water yet. You don't need to. The water we're going to use later on for attaching. Even smoothing, most smoothing can be done without water. Okay, and because it's the first day, I'm going to explain how we do cleanup. So we're going to pause right there.